Welcome to Post Film Clarity. I'm Marquita,
I'm Lindsay.
and we are working remote for the first time because I had to take a sick day. If there's any difference in audio quality, sorry about that. I am in bed right now.
I'm in my closet right now.
Ah, Lindsay,
My closet hallway.
we worked so hard to get you out of the closet and you went right back in, babe. So anyway, today's episode is going to be a 2001 film, AI, Artificial Intelligence. It was directed by Steven Spielberg, but spiritually, this is a Stanley Kubrick movie, and we'll get more into that later on.
Yeah, I have a lot of feelings
Mm,
on
mm.
everything that went down.
Yeah, we'll get into that because this is a fascinating tale of production hell. I mean, this movie took like 30 years to make. So this movie was passed over to Spielberg in 1995. Stanley Kubrick had been working on it since the 70s. And the premise is based off of a short story, which we will also get into later because I actually read an excerpt of it. I found one. But the plot of this movie is an advanced robotic boy longs to become real so that he can hold on to the love of his human mother. This movie stars
Haley Joel Osment.
Francis O'Connor, Sam Robards, Jude Law, and William Hurt. Yeah, so we saw this together at the Alamo Draft House on October 4th of 2023. And I don't remember what the occasion was or if it was some sort of theme shows they were running or just a regular throwback show. I'm not sure why we were there for this, but I remember you and I both expressing our love for this film like early in our, movie going experiences together. And then this popped up to buy tickets for, and we were like, absolutely, let's go.
Was it for an anniversary or was it the specific year?
No, because this came out in 2001 and we saw it in 2023. So it wasn't any anniversary. It wasn't Steven Spielberg's birthday. I couldn't find any reason why they were showing it at that time. I don't remember.
Maybe because it's wait, was it because of when they were showing all the Kubrick movies?
Oh,
Yeah.
ooh,
Yeah.
you just
And
jogged my memory.
this is a different take on that.
That's exactly what it was. I'm looking back further into our letterboxd now,
Mhm.
and yes, we saw The Shining 3 days before that.
Yeah, I
So
was like,
it was
"Oh, was it Halloween?" No, it was
no,
Kubrick.
it was Kubrick season. So
Yeah.
this was about a year and a half ago. The Alamo Draft House did a full, I think, full like Kubrick retrospective. It was over the course of months. They went back to his films from the 50s all the way to Eyes Wide Shut, his very last one, that he was, actually directed. And then they threw in AI, artificial intelligence as well. Your great memory there. I completely forgot about that was that was part of Lindsay's like early film education by me. I was like, hey, let's go watch a bunch of Kubrick movies together. That was so much fun.
So fun.
Oh my God. How many did we end up seeing? I think we saw 4 of them at least.
Yeah, we saw Space Odyssey,
Yep.
The Shining,
Yep.
AI, if you want to count it.
Uh-huh. And Dr. Strangelove.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
so we saw 4 Kubrick movies in theaters, and not many people get to say that. So we are very, very blessed to live so close to the Alamo and to have that app and stalk it every day looking for tickets. So what's your history with this movie?
Um, I can't remember if this was also a library rental or I either owned it, but I just remember I was really obsessed with Haley Joel Osment when I was younger.
Me
Every
too.
any movie that that little boy was in, I was watching it over and
Me
over and over.
too. Oh my God, that's so funny.
I think he might be one of my favorite, like, child actors.
I think he's one of the best to ever, ever, ever do
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Like, honestly.
truly. I think truly any movie that he's in, like, there's no replication.
That
just because
boy
of his acting.
was a star. He could do anything. You do remember Pay It Forward? I watched that movie all the time too because he was in it. I was
Well, I also love that movie because I love Kevin Spacey also,
oh,
but I
yeah.
like his movies.
Ugh.
Um,
We don't
like
know who that
Pay It
is. Oh,
Forward, Pay It Forward, uh, The Sixth Sense.
yes. My God, my parents took me to see The Sixth Sense in theaters like opening weekend. I will
Wow,
never
that
forget that.
is awesome.
Lindsay, I had full body chills when I realized what was going on in that movie. I walked out of that theater like, holy fucking shit.
Okay, well this is just I'm so excited to do this, but people who know movies will get this reference. But 50 First Dates, do you know what I'm talking about?
51st Dates.
With Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler.
Yeah, what about it?
They so well the concept is she has memory loss, so she lives the same day over and over, and
Yep,
in that
very
she
relatable.
watches Sixth Sense for the first time ever. So I actually got it spoiled because of 50 First Dates.
Oh no.
So then when I watched Sixth Sense, I already knew like the big
Oh,
reveal.
that's such a bummer. I feel so bad for people who had that movie spoiled for them. Like, that is one of the greatest twists in like my
Yeah.
movie
Oh my
generation.
God. I
We
think
had no idea.
even thinking about like seeing it for the first time and then getting to watch it after and you're like, I know what you are, and like seeing all the little bits that like you're like, yeah, you're
Oh, there was so much foreshadowing, but a lot of people like to say, "Oh yeah, I knew the twist that was coming before it came." No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You're stop lying. Like just stop the bullshit. There was no way most people walked into that movie theater in 1999 and knew what that movie was going to be. There just isn't. We had no phones, we had no internet. Like how how did you know that? Anyway, I don't want to spoil it for people in case they haven't seen it,
yeah, yeah, I'm not gonna spoil it. I caught myself. I
even
was
though it
about
is
to though.
25 years old. It just had its 25th anniversary. Yeah, so I've been watching Haley Joel Osment for 25 years.
Wow.
And I think we're the same age too. So I think that's why I was so drawn to him as an actor. I'm pretty sure we're the exact same age. So he might be a year younger. I'm not positive, but we're very close in age. And he was one of those um, actors that I always could relate to or look up to, or, someone I was always interested in because of we were contemporaries of that time period. And he's so talented. It's insane. He carries this movie, and I completely understand. He has like a very specific quality that I feel like Steven Spielberg uses in a lot of his child actors, where he just looks at you and breaks your heart. He reminds me a lot of
Hmm.
the kid, and I can't remember his name, Henry, the kid in E.T. He has that quality. He has the same quality as like the kids in the Goonies. He has that same quality as a lot of like a young Christian Bale that Spielberg worked with in Empire of the Sun. And also reminds me of some of the kids in Hook. He worked with a young Dakota Fanning in War of the Worlds as well. Steven Spielberg is really good at casting child actors, and he just knows how to pull their talents and get these amazing performances out of them without making it look painful. I think a lot of children do their best work under Steven Spielberg as a director, and Haley Joel Osment was definitely no exception.
I honestly think Haley Joel Osment and Dakota Fanning are some of my favorite child actors. Like at least their work
For
amazing.
sure. Yeah, we've already talked about Uptown Girls.
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of Man on Fire. Um, I love me some Dakota. So today's theme is kind of a complicated one. There's like a big discussion right now with AI and how AI is being used in modern life. And I just feel like this movie was 25 years ahead of its time, as far as
Yeah.
a lot of these themes. And it's still so painfully on topic right now. I feel like AI is a very controversial topic. We're recording this while the LA wildfires are going on. And because of those wildfires and a lot of the recent climate crises we've seen, many people are once again discussing AI in a big way and how it is affecting our climate and causing a lot of these rises in temperatures of our waters and severe climate impact because of the water that is used to power all of this AI and all of these servers. So I feel like I keep hearing about AI a lot. And it's extra crazy because this movie starts. The first thing you see is, the narrator explaining the how greenhouse gases flooded the coastlines and displaced millions of people. And I'm looking outside like, hmm, um, is this play about us?
Would you say that it's one of the, I guess, earliest AI movies?
For sure. I was trying to look that up actually. I kind of went down a rabbit hole a little bit on this and I was trying to find other examples of movies where like a lot of it is tied up in more so like robotics. But some other examples, it looks like most of them came after, besides the big one obviously is the Terminator and Blade Runner. Blade Runner for sure. Definitely. So there was like a couple of movies before this that really dealt with that. Another one that I thought of, I actually put it in our little recommendation post for this episode, 2001: A Space Odyssey, which the Kubrick connection, because in that movie, there's like a AI assistant on the spaceship, remember, that ends up just like taking it over and shutting it down and being like, I'm in charge now. So yeah, I mean, the earliest example that I could find was actually Stanley
Kubrick.
Kubrick.
Wow.
So we're full circle on that.
Why?
Yeah. And a lot of these are after.
Oh my God. I was really, that makes so much sense because I was thinking, I know there's something that has kind of like the vibe of AI, and it might be Space Odyssey.
It's 2001: A Space Odyssey probably, because he went into production on this movie like 2-3 years after 2001: A Space Odyssey. So this was like top of mind, very fresh for Kubrick at the time of developing this movie.
I wonder what Kubrick would have thought of Ex Machina.
Yeah, me too. I think it would probably like it. It does have a lot of crossover with 2001 as far as that third act, that plot line of, making a robot that's so smart that it basically outsmarts you, and the danger in that. And that's a big part of the Alien franchise as well. So yeah, there's been a few examples, but I think one of the earliest ones is definitely Kubrick himself, which is wild. And that movie inspired Spielberg. And then Spielberg ended up making this movie. It's so crazy how their careers are in conversation with each other and how they were friends as far as I know it. They were like buddies.
I do think that AI, something about, I guess, the approach on the actual, like, robots have such a more human feel to it. And I don't know if it's because of how early the film is. I don't know. I think it just makes me love it even more.
Because this movie does, I was going to bring that up. This movie does garner like such a huge amount of sympathy and like empathy towards these machines, which I also find pretty rare, because when I was looking up other examples of work like this, it's pretty much always, like I mentioned with 2001, it's, oh, this robot or this AI is coming to life and it's killing humans. It's attacking humans. It's, like Skynet in the Terminator franchise. It's more examples of like how, or the Matrix, which came out a couple years before this. The main kind of storyline we see with advanced robotics and artificial intelligence is like the horror aspect of it, the threat of it, the implication that we're causing our own extermination with it. And they're pretty much always painted as the villain. And that's a huge difference between this movie, where I think making him a child and making him literally someone who was just designed to love. It puts the movie in such a different place within, its sci-fi contemporaries and counterparts about this subject matter.
I think the even like all of the robots, there's not really many that like Jude Law specifically. There's a really big impact on the robots are scared of the human's capability and like human is evil, not like robot is evil, even though human is who
True.
makes robot. Um,
Right. Yeah. Jude Law is very lovable in this movie as well. I didn't realize I thought he was only in it for a few minutes. I don't know why I was thinking his part was smaller, but when I rewatched it again, I was like, oh, he's in most of this movie. He's such a great character. I love Jude Law's presence in this movie.
of Jude Law in this movie. He's so beautiful.
Yeah, I think this is one of his best
Hmm.
roles. So for those who haven't seen it, let's just bring everyone through like a brief summary of what happened in the movie. So like I said, it opens up by saying that greenhouse gases have flooded the coastlines, millions of humans have been displaced, and because of this population decline, human birth has become government controlled, which is terrifying, and I feel like we're not that far off
I
from
mean,
um,
in some places of the world, that is the case.
that's
Yeah.
already yikes. Monica is a grieving mother, but the interesting thing is her son's not exactly dead. He is in suspended animation. He's in he's basically in cryogenic freeze when we open up on the story. And you come to find out that he's got some rare disease. It was deadly. He was very, very, very ill. So Monica and her husband Henry basically made the decision to freeze him until there was some sort of medical advancement, some sort of cure available to save their son. And I guess he's been frozen for years and years. And Henry is basically trying to encourage Monica to grieve the loss of their child, even though he's not all the way lost. And she's in like a really hard place with it because how do you grieve someone who's not gone, especially your child? So Henry decides to give Monica David, who is an artificial child from the company where he works. He works for the robotics AI company.
Can I
Um,
just say, like, giving a grieving mother a robot child, that's not how you grieve. Who made that?
that had me
And
that had me
it
so
was like
fucked up.
what, a doctor or someone like advocating for that's how she should be processing her grief? Crazy.
Yes. Yeah, it's all
Hmm.
men. It's all men in her life telling her how she's supposed to feel and how she's supposed to act. And making decisions on her behalf. Yeah, that shit pissed me off. Monica did not have enough autonomy in this movie. She was basically like this rag doll kind of, in a lot of ways similar to David. She was basically had all these decisions made for her, all these attachments made for her without her input. And then everyone's like, oh, well, why are you acting like this? What? How am I supposed to act? You brought me this robotic child home and told me to take care of it and not love it. How is that supposed to happen? I'm a mother. And I feel like it was just such a disservice to her as a woman, the way that everyone in this movie treated her like she was too irrational and too crazy and too emotional to quote unquote move on from what was happening to their son. And Henry is just like, I know, I'll fix it. I'll like buy you this doll. And I'm like, bro, I don't even think he asked her permission. Remember? He just like brought it home.
Just like open the door and it's like, here he is.
You can't do that.
Shoved him in her face and was like, you gotta connect with them. It's crazy.
Yeah, that shit was wild. So they bring David home, without Monica's input, and she ends up becoming attached to him. At first, she's really scared of him, which I think is valid because he is a little creepy. Haley Joel Osment is such a good actor. I love those early scenes of him before he gets that like imprinting emotion turned on, and it really is, especially for what he must have been 11 at this time, 10, something like that. For him to be able to change his performance as a robot from I'm a robot. I'm just kind of going through the motions. And then to I'm now imprinted on Monica. I am a human. I'm in love. I love her. This is my mother. And you can feel that change in his performance throughout the movie. It is insane. It's so good. So yeah, she gets attached to him. She does an imprinting sequence on him. And then when their human child miraculously recovers, David doesn't know how to act. He's jealous. He doesn't know how to respond to this because he thought, oh, I'm Monica's only child. Monica's my mommy. Who is this other kid? Like, where the fuck did he come from? What am I supposed to do with it?
The other kid is a little shit.
My God, he's such a bastard. You know who that is, right?
Yeah.
That's the little boy from Lizzie McGuire.
Yeah, it's so
I
funny.
already hated that kid.
Oh my God, he gets on my nerves.
I already hated him with a flaming passion. He is my op. He was my op from this. I think Lizzie McGuire was on at the same time, or maybe this is right before. Actually, you know what? I think it was the same year. And he tortures poor David. He's so mean to him. And like, yeah, he's a kid, but oh my God, he pissed me off. So anyway, yeah, he's like tormenting this fucking robot who's already like going through this like emotional turmoil that was programmed into him. And he doesn't know how to respond properly. And then they basically are like, yeah, you got to get out of our house because you're like putting our human son in danger and you're not our real son. And he's like, I'm not. And then they just throw him on the side of the road.
This is
This
actually,
movie had me.
this is interesting because what was her actual son's name?
Martin, I believe.
The reason he didn't like David is because David was taller than him, and I mean, he was jealous of him.
He was. The first thing he said was, oh, you're
Yeah.
bigger than me. I think he was jealous also that David was maybe a little bit like better
Mm-hmm.
looking, like
Yeah.
cuter than him. He was the like lovable perfection doll version of Martin, And I think it really messed with Martin's head as far as like, well, damn, I almost died and I've been, frozen for however long
And replaced.
until I got better. Yeah, and then he comes back and there's a replacement robot in his house. I do get where he's coming from a little bit, I fear. I would be fucking pissed if my parents replaced me with a goddamn robot and then were like, oh, get along with her. Are you out of your fucking mind? I'm an only child. You can't do that shit to me. I basically did do that to me. I was an only child until
Oh,
I was like
yeah.
11, and then they brought home a
Yeah.
baby, and I was like, what the fuck is
Truly.
this? Hi, Chloe, I love you. But yeah, I understand where they're both coming from. Childhood is already hard enough, especially being gravely ill as a child. And then to come home to a fucking robot who's like, mommy, 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 mommy. I would be sick. So anyway, when Monica throws him on the side of the road, which, oh my God, we'll get into that scene later. So devastating. The rest of the runtime, mostly, it's about an hour and 15 minutes of David's adventure to become a real boy, quote unquote, and get back to his human family because all he wants to do is go home to Monica. And Jude Law plays his robotic companion, Gigolo Joe, who is kind of his like fucked up sex robot Jiminy Cricket. This is we're gonna get into the Pinocchio illusions later on, but most of the runtime is not him with the family or him in the house. It's an hour and 15 minutes of I'm trying to get back home to Monica and all the people he meets along the way on his adventure to help him. So what would you say the overall theme of the movie is for you?
So a theme that I kind of created for myself is if humans create machines that can love, what obligations do humans owe their creation?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's really so distressing how like I said, David and Monica are both set up to fail throughout this story, throughout their experiences in this story. Because how are you going to create something that loves and is attached to you permanently, forever, and then throw him on the side of the road and be like, all right, you got to go because, you're making my husband uncomfortable and you are, scaring my child. It's kind of fucked up. I had a really similar theme. I said that my big question, my big takeaway was, can love exist between human and machines? Like actual genuine love? Because I do feel like there was a part of Monica that did really love this kid.
I I actually don't know if I agree with you. I
Ooh,
I think
okay. Get into
that
it.
I mean, because who are we really to define what love is in this sense? And I think that the robot honestly does have the capacity to love the human, but I don't know if the human can love the robot in the same way because it knows
Interesting.
it's a robot, but the robot's programmed to love.
And you don't feel it. I mean, humans are as well.
Yeah, I guess that's
We're
true.
certainly programmed to love, but you're right. Maybe we aren't programmed to love
Something
non-humans in the
artificially.
same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Is Are we able to overcome our programming
Hmm.
to love something artificial? That is a yeah, it's a big
I mean, I loved Monica's character because she's a grieving mother and she's so frazzled the entire movie, but she still takes
yeah.
care of David and mothers him, even though I don't really know if she either wanted to, and it definitely wasn't the healthiest thing for her.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I mean, she at least cared for him. She did not take him straight to the factory for termination. She did at least give him a chance.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what I was alluding to as far as feeling like part of her did love him because it's like if she didn't care about him and if she wasn't attached to him as well, she would have just driven him back to the factory to be reset
Mhm.
or reprogrammed or whatever her husband was trying to do. And instead she saves him and she's like, listen, you can't go towards other humans. Don't talk to anybody. Run to these woods and find other people like you, other robots who can maybe help you get to where you need to go to save yourself, to stay alive. And when she does drop him off, she is sobbing. Like she's so upset and like hurt that she's doing it, but you're right, she still does it.
I yeah, I
And I don't think she would do that to
I
her
think
son.
I could argue that maybe that's just motherly instinct because I mean he
Mhm.
is a little boy.
Right. A little synthetic
Yeah.
boy. He's like crying for her and like,
Hmm.
oh my God, that scene is so
Yeah.
tough. It's like, old Yeller levels of just abject pain. She's like, get away
Hmm.
from me. Go. She literally like does
Shoves
the old
him.
Yeller like
Yeah.
shoves like throws him in the woods like get out of here. Go away. I can't take you with me. Poor boy. Oh my God. Yeah. I think Monica's relationship with him is really the key to the whole movie. It's what he spends the entire movie trying to get back to. Um, which he does in just devastating fashion later on.
Do you
But
think it was
I-
real or just like his programming though?
wow. I mean, he was programmed to be attached to
Yeah,
her
like truly
forever.
tied to her.
Which also, why would you do that? Like I know you have thoughts on the robotics doctor who
Yeah,
made him. We will
how are
get
you
into him because
gonna
that
oh
man,
my God, how are you gonna create a robot that can feel all the feelings that humans have, but like then just strip him away?
he can never, yeah, and he can never die.
David is the byproduct of the inability to deal with grief. This
Absolutely.
goes for Monica, but also David's creator, Professor Hobby.
Yeah, that was like a big kind of surprise in the movie that he basically made a replica of his own son and called it David and was like, all right, this is a child that can just love you forever and never get sick or die or whatever. Yeah.
I'm curious though, like why David originally got sent to Monica instead of Professor Hobby wanting him, I guess.
If that part's a little unclear, but I think maybe Professor Hobby had his own David and told
Ooh.
his employee like, "Oh, I have this like robot that'll really help your crazy wife who can't get over what's going on with your kid. Like, here, take a prototype or whatever." I know at that time, David was either the first or the only version of that robot. So I'm not sure if Monica and Henry had the first one or if Dr. Hobby had the first one. But yeah, you find out later on that it's a identical replica of Dr. Hobby's real life son, David, who I guess he had lost um, a long time ago, and he was just spent his life basically trying to recreate him, which is super sad and fucked up. Um, you're right. I think a lot of this movie is about grief, and it's grief in all sorts of forms. It's grief of the loss of a child, it's grief of your child's health, grieving time passing. There's David grieving the loss of what he feels and what he thinks, what he's programmed to be attached to. He's grieving the loss of Monica and wants to get back to her so badly throughout the whole movie. And a lot of this stems from, like you said, the inability to deal with grief and to deal with loss as an emotion. And I feel like that's pretty relatable as like it's just like a natural part of humanity, you know? Like we who wants to let go and say goodbye and forget? It's something that's really hard to deal with and grapple with as a human. And if there was a way to extend that feeling or to never lose a person, would you consider doing something like this?
No, I'm hoping that I'll be able to work through my own emotions. No, I would not give myself a chance because I know who I am.
Hmm.
I would create an entire different alternate reality and I would never be able to accept anything. So I'd
Oh no.
probably want to just start fresh and deal with my own emotions and not
Right.
extend them into an artificial being.
Yeah. I really grappled with it. Like, some days, like dealing with losses I have dealt with, do I think about, man, if I could just like replace them, would I? Sometimes, honestly, yeah, I think I would. But I just know that it wouldn't satisfy me ultimately because it's not them, you know? It's not the real, they're never going to breathe the same. They're never gonna smell the same. They're never gonna sound the same. It's just you can't duplicate people and you can't replace them. And yeah, of course, grief is painful and no one wants to go through it. It's the worst thing you can go through, but that grief is a part of being a human. It's what makes us human is that pain and that loss and that sense of we're only here temporarily and we have to make the best of the time we have together and not take each other for granted. And when you have that much power and that much money and technology, I think the desire to do something like this is pretty high. I understand why Dr. Hobby would want to do something like this. I just don't think he really thought about what this would do to himself, to the humans he's selling this product to. You can't, the ethics of this are crazy. And I don't think he thought about it enough.
Well, not confronting like the pain of grief
Hmm.
is an ability to grow. And I mean, he stayed stuck behind the what was it? The waterfall that he was in. I mean, that was just where he was. He didn't leave. He never moved on. And it was because he didn't want to confront those like true feelings of losing his son.
My God, you're right. He Grief is a part of growth and he never grew. He stayed stuck in a lot of ways. At the beginning of the movie, Monica was also stuck. Martin was stuck. Literally. He was frozen in time. And yeah, there is something to that stuckness, that paralysis, that inability to move forward in life that stops you from really living a full life.
Yeah, well, not confronting reality is creating an alternate one.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we really see the negative effect that has on certain people in this movie, especially Monica. I just think Frances O'Connor is so good in this movie.
He's beautiful.
She's so
She's
beautiful.
so beautiful and so classy. I loved her outfits and just
I
her
loved her
vibe.
hair. Yeah,
Mhm.
she was like beautiful, perfect, classy mom.
Mhm.
Just so warm and funny, and yeah, just she was like the ideal, she's like everything you'd want in a mom, you know? And I understand why and how like someone could fall in love with her and be attached to her, and how hard that was for her to detach herself from David. But like you said, yeah, now you're bringing me around. Maybe it was easier for her to dispose of him because she knows deep down he's not real. Like he's not her son. He is a machine. He's never gonna. He can't grow either. He can't move on from anything. He's stuck right there where they programmed him.
I would have loved if we could have seen more in David and Monica, but then Martin kind of ruined it. Um, like him coming back, I think really solidified that, okay, David is a robot, and it made it a lot
Right.
easier for her to want to get rid of him.
I think that's a really good point. Martin othered David a lot, constantly.
As soon as Martin came back, then Monica, I think, was starting to get a little more creeped out with David.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, it doesn't seem like he was programmed to be with siblings,
Mm-hmm.
to be part of a collective, part of a larger family. There was just nothing in him that was like, I can have a brother, I can have a sister, I can be in like a larger family unit. He like wasn't prepared for that at all.
Yeah,
And
well, what's interesting is Martin, he he knew that Pinocchio was gonna trigger David.
ooh, that little fucker. Yeah, let's get
Mm-hmm.
into this. This is what really, really, really set David off on
Yeah,
his adventure to quote unquote become a real boy. Martin is such a little devious
a little
shitbag.
shit, a little
I
shit bag.
what he did to David is, I'm sorry, unforgivable. Cause he thinks he's slick. He was that type of kid that would have like kicked you under the table, and then when you react, he would be like, "Oh my God, Lindsay, why are you doing that?" Oh, I would have fucked him up. But he basically was like, "Oh, mommy, read us the story. David's gonna love it." And it's Pinocchio. Sent this little robot boy into a full on spiral, identity crisis, panic, just absolute, like, you could see him in real time realizing, oh, I'm not real.
Yeah,
I need to go to the blue fairy to become a real boy like Pinocchio. Martin is so foul for that. He fucked this little dude up. He was like, wait a minute, I'm not real? Oh shit. How do I get real? Tell me, the story is gonna tell me how. He didn't know what fairy tales were, and of course he didn't. He's a robot. He doesn't have fantasies. He doesn't have dreams. He doesn't have imagination.
you know, it's selfish. It's selfish that they created David, but like lacked so much from an actual real boy.
You're right. He was missing a lot of, like I said, the creative, the imagination, a lot of what makes us human. I mean, maybe there's just no way to replicate that. Maybe that is just not something that technology can do, even in this like fantasy world. Maybe that's why there was always that divide between David and Martin, and him not understanding how to be a real boy. But yeah, so what were some highlights of the movie for you as far as theme? Because the first thing that jumped out to me was climate change. And like I said, how climate change is such a big, huge topic of conversation right now, and how it's directly correlated to this use and overuse of AI and, corporate greed and whatnot. When the story starts with like this big message of climate change, and this was added to the story because the short story was written in, I believe, the 60s. The original story, written in 1969, did not have climate change written into it. So that was something that Kubrick had added either in the 70s or throughout his time with the story until 1995. Or my guess is it was something that Spielberg added even later than that.
Yeah, I wonder. There's so
I
many
couldn't find
unanswered questions with this movie.
this whole production is quite a mystery. It's so hard to untangle a lot of it. Kubrick hired writers for this in the early 1970s, 2-3 years after he made 2001: A Space Odyssey. I believe that was 1968. This short story was written in 1969. It's called Super Toys Last All Summer Long. And then sometime until 1995, Kubrick was always in production on this movie, on this story. You know, different actors, different funding throughout the years, different studios, different writers. It's um it was just, do you know the phrase development hell?
I think I can use some context clues.
Yeah. This is like a Hollywood phrase when something is in development for like years and years and years and years, and it's just hell to get this movie made, to get it started, to get it cast, to get it financed, whatever, you know. There's like a development process that's, you know, it can take 2-3 years, 6 months, or in this case, 30 years.
I think it's kind of worth it though. It
Oh,
was worth it.
absolutely. I would agree. You can kind of see and feel that it took 30 years to make this, and not in the sense that it was dragging or that it was outdated or that it felt pained. It just seems like it was very lived in, the story, and
Hmm.
very cared for
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
very personal in a way.
It is. It's a really intimate movie.
Intimate, that's the word.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like so touching, but so jarring at the same time. There's
Yes.
so many scenes of just David really that are really creepy. I think there's two that even when I was younger, I was like, I am uncomfortable right now, but like loving it so much. The first
Mhm.
one is the scene where Monica's about to get notified that Martin is like awake, and David connects himself to the phone and he's like, Monica,
I
Monica,
I hate that
Monica.
scene.
Yeah,
I
it's
hate that.
so scary. And
I hate it because it's her
mhm,
husband's voice
yeah,
coming out of the robot, out of
yeah,
David. And it's just Haley Joel Osment. Oh my God, he's acting his ass off.
yeah,
And she's like, David, get off the phone. Like, David, disconnect. And her husband is like screaming, and you can see it on Haley Joel Osment's face. I think that's the most he looks like a robot, is one of those scenes where you're just like, ugh. Another one like that that really creeps me out is when he is trying to eat food.
You're about to talk about the spinach scene.
Yes.
That's my second scene that like
I
throws
knew
me into discomfort.
it. I knew it. Oh my God. That dinner table scene is so,
Yes. Oh my
ugh,
God.
it's so stressful. And again, it's Martin antagonizing him.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Possibly why I didn't like sauteed spinach when I was younger. Maybe
really?
because
Because
of
of this
this
movie?
movie. Maybe. Yeah.
Oh no. This shit is so uncomfortable. Like, again, that's when he looks super, super robotic, and he's trying to
Mhm.
eat food, and it gets all stuck in his inner like mechanical workings, and then his face starts like melting and drooping. The special effects in this movie, especially for almost 25 years ago, insane.
Yeah.
Insane. It looks so real. It's crazy.
I
Oh,
I was just gonna say, David truly is the scapegoat for everyone's issues.
yeah, he is. Everything that goes wrong within that family, they're like, oh, it's David. You know who we haven't talked about yet? I'm now realizing Teddy.
Jenny! I can't believe this.
What if we make it this long into the pod and not talk about the cutest, the bestest? I could cry just thinking about him. I saw Teddy in real life last year at the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures. I basically involuntarily started crying like on the spot. I
Oh
didn't
my
know he was I
God.
didn't know he was there. I walked into this room. It's, if you've never been to LA and you've never been to the Academy Museum, I was texting Lindsay pictures every like 10 minutes. I could not recommend it enough. I went on a solo trip to LA last year, and had one of the best times of my life. And shout out to all my Ringerverse people. I was out there to see another podcast actually live. And before that, the day before, I went to the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures and spent basically the entire day there. It's cinematic heaven. It has literally all of film history on like 5, 6 floors of this huge, huge space. And in one of the rooms, it's a lot of the like sci-fi props and the like fantasy props. So you go in the room and it's like, you know, it's the jacket from The Matrix. It's Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn costume. It's the shield from Captain America. It's Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man helmet. All the stuff, right? And I look to my left, and in this like glass case, in this glass case, by himself, and he's all like ruffled and kind of dirty, like he is in the movie. It's Teddy. And I was like,
Sent me that picture and I almost started crying. As soon as I was like, oh my God, Daddy.
I didn't know that's where he was. It made me. I'm gonna start crying. I was in shambles. And then again, the Cooper connection. I went into the next room, and it was props from 2001: A Space Odyssey. Now that I think of it, so yeah, it was. I guess it was like the sci-fi and fantasy prop room. But yeah, you can go see Teddy in real life, and we haven't explained him yet, but he is like an animatronic bear who is Martin's childhood toy before he got sick. And he's this like little teddy bear that can walk and talk and think, and he's like a little, I don't want to say butler, but he's kind of like
He's
a
a
little
super
like,
toy.
yeah, he's a super toy. He's very helpful and he's a part of the family. He's like not like a family pet, but
Honestly,
I
he's
don't
got
know.
more autonomy than David and Monica.
Bro, woof. Don't even. Oh my God. He does. Damn. But yeah, Teddy is this like cute little teddy bear that walks around and talks and helps David on his adventure. Teddy is with him like all the way through and through thick and thin. The whole story, Teddy and David are like this together, just side by side, going through this.
I actually want to talk about that a little.
Yeah.
David instantly falls in love with Teddy, but he like doesn't want to admit that they're the same. Like he wants to stay with I am a real boy and Teddy is a robot.
Yes. Yes. He writes that crazy ass letter to Monica at one point that's like, hey, it's just over and over again. It's like, Mommy, I love you. I love you. Mommy, I love you. And I'm your real boy. And I'm your real son. And
Yeah.
Teddy is not. Teddy is not your son. Teddy is a robot. Teddy is a toy. I am not a toy, though. I am your son, and I love you. Mommy, mommy, mommy. That letter is like a fucking manifesto. I was like, bro, you gotta chill.
Right before Monica takes David away, I think that might have been
Yeah.
her last straw. She's like, all right, I'm too weirded out. Now you've got to
I think
go.
this is it for me. Yeah. This kid is doing too much. This shit is scary. You're right. I think
Yeah.
between that and him trying to like chop off a lock of her hair, she was like, "Nee, you gotta go."
Again, because of
Get the
Martin.
fuck out of here. Yes, that was because of Martin as well. He was like, "Oh, if you cut her hair and have a lock of her hair, she'll love you." I was like, "Why do you do this, you little demon?" But Teddy is like he's for a long period of that movie, he's the only character basically that's on David's side and trying to help him.
I think when we first saw it at the Alamo, as soon as we got out, we were like, there's a very noticeable shift between like, this is a Kubrick movie and this is a Spielberg movie.
100%.
I'm just so curious.
I felt that shift as well, but I was completely flipped on who did what part. I was so positive that Spielberg had done the opening and the closing, which is all the I'm obsessed with my mommy stuff because I told you I'd just seen the Fablemans around this time. And I was like, girl, listen. So the Fablemans explains a lot of Steven Spielberg's career and a lot of his relationship to women and his mother. Not necessarily in a bad way, but definitely in a way that his mom was basically the OG manic pixie dream girl. She was like, she literally had a pixie cut. She was literally manic. He was like undiagnosed, like bipolar for sure. She had like episodes and had this like quirky pet fucking monkey that would like tear up the house. And she was very, very, very quirky. Michelle Williams plays her fucking beautifully in The Fablemans, right? So I just
Still
seen
need to
that.
see that.
I think you would like it. It's so good. Gabriel LaBelle plays like a young Spielberg. He is excellent, like chef's kiss. Anyway, his mother and the way he portrays his mother in that movie and the way that apparently a lot of what's in that movie is straight up what happened when he was a child, and how he views his mother. I was so positive because of knowing that backstory and his personal life, especially after the Fablemans. I was like, oh, well, all the Monica stuff is clearly Spielberg, and all the like middle parts, the sci-fi like thriller element of it when he's at the like robot circus and going through all these trials and tribulations. I was like, oh, well, clearly that's the Kubrick part of it. I was wrong. It was,
Really?
yeah, it's the complete reverse. Kubrick was responsible for like the opening and the closing, and Spielberg basically filled in all the middle, as
That's
far as I
so
understand it.
that's so confusing to me.
Yeah, it blew my mind. I was like, wait, you're telling me all the mommy stuff is not Spielberg?
And all of the like end like alien stuff with like the warm lighting isn't Spielberg?
No, no. Blew my mind. I was like, there's no fucking way.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's when I knew we were definitely gonna do an episode on this movie because I just find it so fascinating. It's crazy that this movie even exists.
I think this movie is truly in its own category for me.
Yeah. It's one of those movies that I loved when I was younger, then I didn't see it for like 10, 15 years and I was like, "Oh, it's probably fine." And then I watched it again with you at the Alamo for the first time. God, probably since high school, I think.
Wow.
And I was like, no, this shit is actually maybe even better than I remember. You can tell that there's like a shift, but not in the way that you would expect between these two directors. And I also love it makes me look at Kubrick's work differently because now I can see like a different side of him, if that makes sense, through this work. Um, and what his impact was on this story. It's so wild to me. So we've talked about like the overarching themes and our experience with this movie. I also wanted to expand on that a little bit because I've been reading like some modern articles about AI and chatbots and whatnot. And I found a really good article on Wired about this replica chatbot that people are getting so emotionally attached to that they like are accidentally or maybe intentionally, I don't know, like falling in love with it.
Oh, yikes.
Yikes. Yeah. Super fascinating. If anyone wants to dig into that, It's No Wonder People Are Getting Emotionally Attached to Chatbots. And I was like, damn, human loneliness epidemic strikes again. Because what the fuck do you mean?
It's those damn phones.
It's like I have been saying, not you stealing my catchphrase. I have been saying that so much recently, and at first it was like a joke, but it's not a fucking joke.
It's not a joke anymore.
It's not a joke, babe. It really is the damn phones. I fear our parents were right. I forget how that bit even came up, but weren't we talking about like online dating and how like
Yeah.
weird guys
Nobody
are
wants
online
to
nowadays?
yeah, no one wants to meet anyone in person because they go
Yeah.
home to their dating apps.
Yes, they go home to their dating apps and they want to talk to you online and just get you to send nudes.
And not meet in person.
Yes. So they can beat off to pictures of you on a screen instead of just going on a date and talking to each other. And I was like, it's those damn phones. It's so sad. It's so weird. This upcoming generation that's been raised like completely online, with like cell phones since they were single digits. I'm sorry, those kids are fucking weird. They're
You
weird.
know, it is weird because I'm 25
Hmm.
and even people that are 21 now
Yes.
didn't have the experience that I had from like knowing what the majority of life was like before phones became like our
Yes.
priority.
Yeah. Before phones,
W-
before social media, they have no memory of that. Yeah. The 21-year-olds, like your age and younger, you're the first generation that doesn't remember 9/11 and doesn't remember life without computers and cell phones.
There was someone talking about how online connection is still connection. And although I think that's true,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the same as like face to face communication. Like we can't be living online. We can't.
I I I agree. I agree with you. I think that, and I know it makes me sound elder millennial, which I am, that's fine. But it's like, I didn't have a cell phone until I was in college. I didn't have social media until I was a senior in high school, freshman in college. I lived 18 years of my life basically with no phone, no computer, no social media. And I do find the difference in communication style, in even just being able to spell, um, written communication, face-to-face communication, it is declining and it's way different. And I can always tell when people are like, "Oh yeah, I grew up on Tumblr." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I get fucking yeah, I know, babe. I know." Like, yeah, all of my humor is from like Vine and Tumblr, and I'm like, "Yeah, we know." And I just don't have that experience with the internet or with like I'm still old enough where like I was handwriting papers in school and stuff. Like it's you guys don't even write by
Oh
hand
my
anymore.
God. The amount of it's crazy how like I guess big AI is for writing papers nowadays.
It
Oh, it's
is.
terrifying. It is
All the kids in
truly
college right
terrifying.
now are
Hmm.
just using AI to do their homework,
Yeah.
and I'm like, that's actually fucking horrifying because some of these people are gonna be doctors and like lawyers and judges and higher up members of society, and you don't know how to read or write.
Like in I guess the situation of talking about how AI is useful, it should
Hmm.
be like ways to do our laundry and our chores instead of like
Yes.
creating our art for us.
Oh, yeah. AI should be used for the labor that we do instead of being creative.
Hmm.
And right now it's being used to create so we
Yeah.
can do more labor. That's what it was. And it was just like, God, that's so depressing.
So AI was 2001,
Yeah.
and so much of it is really a basis of like human evil. But
Yeah.
nowadays, AI movies are like rooted in the evil of AI, but
Hmm.
like who's creating the AI? It's
Right.
just adapting our entire mentality on this alternate reality. As I always do, I route back every single issue to capitalism and Western culture. Um,
Period.
which I think Western culture really separates us from like what's a being and what are we superior to and what's inferior to us. Like, especially plants. I consider plants to be their own beings capable of feeling.
I think that's been
And
proven.
yeah, it has been proven. It
Hmm.
has. And like us as humans, although we are creating AI, who are we to define what is real and what isn't? I don't know. What truly can we intellectualize if we don't know the capabilities of what we're creating? I think we can argue that AI is helpful, but especially in the movie, it was for entirely selfish reasons. And what makes it being real if we're defining what's worthy or unworthy? I think Professor Hobby created David with the idea that he's one of a kind, but then as soon as he was deemed unworthy, he was the first of a kind?
He goes back to where he was created and sees that there's like 200 other exact versions of
Yeah.
him. And he's like, oh, I'm not the only one. And in all of these different phases of the story, he is adapting and getting new information and creating new identities and new thoughts for himself. And I don't know if that's what Professor Hobby intended or even considered when he was programming David, but he does become extremely self-aware, especially once he hears that Pinocchio story. And I don't think that it's really up to humans, if you're creating a machine to think, to tell them how. I don't think you can regulate. And that's why AI is so stressful to me and kind of scary, honestly, because it's like at a certain point, we're not going to be able to control this anymore. And we're not going to be able to tell it how to think and what to think and what to do. And then we're fucking cooked. Then that's how you get Skynet, babe. That's how you get Judgment Day. There's also a lot of religious themes throughout the story because, I mean, it's all about creation and trying to meet your maker. Just pulled this quote because it was so interesting to me. And that until then, I hadn't really been thinking about religion, but this definitely made me think about religion. The quote is, "The ones who made us are always looking for who made them." And I believe it's Jude Law's character when he takes David to a church, and David's like, "What is this?" And, and basically, they're trying to do the exact same thing. They're searching for their creator. They're searching for the David's searching for his purpose, his meaning. He's trying to get to the point where he can be real so badly because he wants to be able to be loved. And I feel like that is like a huge theme within like religion and religious beliefs and people's personal like faith. I feel like a lot of it comes down to wanting to have a relationship with your creator and have like a purpose in life. What do you think?
I think us as humans are constantly looking for purpose. And for a lot of people, religion does that.
Yeah.
I think because I'm not religious and I've had a really weird relationship with it, but over time, I think I've began to understand why people gravitate towards this constant like affirmation of values and purpose.
Absolutely. I do empathize and understand religion and religious people and why you would want that or need that or feel like it adds value to your life. Absolutely. I don't agree, but I mean it's not adding anything to me, but I do understand. And I do not agree.
Do not agree with Jesus, unfortunately.
No, no.
No, no,
That's not
no.
that's not for me, but people who do have that faith and are able to believe without seeing, I feel like the story was definitely trying to say something about faith and creationism. And that part was in the original short story from the 60s. I mean, I feel like that's a big theme within Kubrick and Spielberg's work. So we just found some more overlap there besides, the obvious like sci-fi stuff. A lot of their movies revolve around family and faith and creation or creators. So I thought that was really interesting. What scenes stood out for you that we haven't talked about already?
I know it has to do with when David's finally getting everything explained to him, and he says, "My brain is melting." Do you remember that
Yes.
scene?
Yeah, that's when he goes back and meets the professor and sees all those hundreds
Right.
of other Davids
Yeah.
and realizes, oh, I'm one of a fucking billion. But I thought the imprint protocol scene was extra beautiful. And there's something, so the way David's face lights up and he changes from like this vacant kind of like happy child robot to this vulnerable, loving child, it's breathtaking. like she says the word, she presses the button on the back of his neck, does the whole imprint protocol, and then he's just like,
Mommy.
Monica, mommy. Yeah, that's right. He doesn't even call her Monica. He's like, mommy. And his whole mannerism changed. Like he just changes so much. He just turns into this loving little baby. He's like, oh, I know who I am now. I am David. I'm your baby. Like, you are my mommy.
Mhm.
And it's such a fascinating coming online moment for David, when he becomes so, I mean, some would argue, too attached. Which also another point I forgot to make earlier. This is also, if you think about it, a Frankenstein story. It's which for some reason like wasn't hitting me because I was so hung up on the Pinocchio aspects of it, and there are many, obviously trying to become a real boy, all that. But it's also a Frankenstein story because it's about, a scientist who has like this loss and is trying to replace that loss and that grief with a creation that ends up destructive and, too attached. And I thought there was a lot of parallels between Dr. Frankenstein and Professor Hobby. So yeah, it definitely has a lot of elements of that Mary Shelley story. So besides Frances O'Connor, who is spectacular in this movie, what were some other favorite performances of yours or just of note?
Meryl Streep as Blue Fairy.
You blew my mind when you put this in the notes. I did not
Oh,
know
I
this.
was so hoping that would happen. Oh my God.
Yeah, I had no idea that was her. I knew the voice sounded familiar, but she sounded so young. Like, I don't know if they pitched her voice up or if she was just playing it super high in that register, but I had no idea that was Meryl Streep. And I've seen this movie like 15 times.
Cast is stacked.
It is. That's true. We didn't even talk about Brendan Gleeson, who is the like ringleader of that robot circus. Oh my God. Just up and down, there's so many great performances, but one that also I recognized his voice before, but I had forgotten. Robin Williams is in this movie as Dr. No, which is this like, I don't know, how would you describe it? It's like he's like a Google,
Mhm.
like a,
Like an animated browser.
yes. So yeah, at one point, Jude Law and Haley Joel Osment, they go to Dr. No, and like 2 sentences in, I'm like, oh my God, it sounds like Genie from Aladdin. I'm like, it is. It is. It's Robin Williams. I thought that was fucking incredible. It was so great to hear his voice. I miss him so much. The music is fantastic. It's John Williams, of course, which, he did E.T., amongst other things, Star Wars, Jurassic Park. He's the GOAT.
We really haven't talked about the ending very much. When David decides to spend the day with Monica.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when he gets frozen. So to kind of sum it up, spoiler alert for this 25-year-old movie, he gets frozen. They do get to the Blue Fairy, and it's obviously not real. It's a statue, and he doesn't know that. And he gets frozen for 2,000 years in the sea in Manhattan. And then when he's unfrozen, it's these alien beings who discover him and read all his memories and realize, oh man, this little creature has been looking for Monica for thousands of years. Oh, I'm gonna cry. Oh, hold on.
And Teddy made it through it all.
Yeah. Teddy stayed with him side by side for 2,000 years. Oh my God, we'll lose it. And when he woke up, he's still looking for Monica. And the aliens are like, she's gone, bro. Like, she doesn't exist anymore. And these aliens were so empathetic. And they're like, man, we really want to help this little like robot boy move on. And they're like, well, we have the technology to clone. We need her hair, her skin. Do you have anything from this person? And he is devastated because he's like, no, I don't have any piece of Monica to give you to clone her.
This might be my
Teddy
favorite.
my God, Lindsay. When Teddy comes up with that little lock of hair And he's like, is this enough? Sorry, I get so emotional. I can't take it. Oh my God. When he gives the lock of hair and he does it because he's like, David deserves this one last day, this one last moment with Monica. This is all he's wanted for thousands of years, is to be back with her. And the aliens are like, listen, you have 24 hours with her, basically. Is this something you want to do? And he's like, absolutely. This is all I want. And they spend one final day together
It was so
with her.
beautiful.
Oh,
I think
that shit has me in shambles every time.
that part is what really led me to believe it was Spielberg's doing, but I guess not.
Me too. Me too. It tracks, right? It's giving
Yeah.
E.T., which we've already heard my E.T. trauma. I cry at the end of this movie the same way I cry at the end of E.T. It just feels so Spielbergian, and that was Kubrick, apparently, which I did not know he had that in him. He wasn't a very like sentimental filmmaker. He wasn't known to be a very sentimental guy. And I think that's what's so surprising to me about this ending is how beautiful it is.
It is really beautiful and just like not even sad.
It's not that I cry because I'm sad. I cry because it's like so human to just want one last day together with someone that you love, that you lost.
Yeah, David's love for Monica, for his mom.
Mm-hmm.
It was just beautiful. It was so beautiful to watch. But I think it's entirely because of Haley Joel Osment.
I agree. I think if this was any other kid actor, this could have been a fucking disaster. This could have been an absolute disaster. But you invest in him so much and you want him to get back to his family, even though he's a fucking robot. That's the thing about Spielberg movies, that he will have you crying over this little fucking alien. He will have you crying over a toy. He will have you crying over a robot. This man knows how to touch your heart, crying over dinosaurs. Like, like there's something so beautiful about the way Spielberg shoots movies and the way he gets the audience invested emotionally into his stories. It's such a rare quality, I feel like, in a filmmaker. He's one of the GOATs for me. He's one of my all-time favorite filmmakers. And I know this is a very touching story for you as well, and something that I think is like a big crossover as far as our tastes in movies overall.
I think the combination of Kubrick and Spielberg's work just truly one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, it's two of my favorite directors in one of my favorite genres, doing what they both do so extremely well, but then also doing what each other does well, to the point where you almost can't tell where one begins and the other ends. And there's something also so touching. See, I'm gonna cry again. There's something so touching about the fact that Spielberg finished his movie for Kubrick after he died. It's so important, I feel like, as human beings to connect through art. I mean, it's obviously a great passion of ours. That's why we do this podcast, and that's why we talk about these stories so much and watch these movies together. And it's just so touching to know that one of Kubrick's dying wishes was for this movie to be made, and Steven Spielberg did it, and he finished it for his friend, who had started this story so far in the past that I don't even know if Spielberg was making studio movies when Kubrick started working on this. And it didn't get finished until after his life had ended, before like Steven's professional life had really taken off. And I love that cross-generational, across time, through life and death connection that they had to be able to finish this project together. Woo! That's magic. That's movie magic. It transcends time.
Yeah, true. My favorite AI movie. I don't think we need anything else.
I agree. There's a few that are like close for me, but this is the
Yeah.
one. This is the one with the most heart.
Yeah. We can find this movie on Paramount Plus.
Hmm.
Recommendations for similar work. Pinocchio, the 2022 version.
Yes, that's the Guillermo del Toro version. It's a Oscar-winning adaptation of Pinocchio. Have you seen
No,
that one?
I haven't seen it.
It's beautiful. I need to finish it. I haven't finished it yet. I think it was a pandemic watch for me. Yeah, 2022. It's on Netflix,
Oh,
and I think it's a stellar version of Pinocchio and much more kind of grounded than the Disney version. And obviously, this is a lot of Pinocchio is a very important story
Pinocchio.
within this story.
Pinocchio.
Pinocchio. Also, we had taken a class at night school bar last year on fembots and AI specifically. So for like a female like revenge story of I recommended Ex Machina, which is a 2014 movie by Alex Garland, who also did Civil War, and we watched that for class.
Really great movie.
I really like that one. That's a big like good for her story. Um, Obviously 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is Kubrick's sci-fi masterpiece, best of the best. It's the movie that all your favorite directors watched that made them want to make movies. It changed the game forever, and people to this day are still trying to figure out how he made this. So definitely check out Kubrick's earlier sci-fi work. So what else are you going to recommend for us?
I've only seen this movie once or twice, and I think this might have actually been a library movie for me. But
Ooh, we love
Surrogate,
a library.
2009 with Bruce Willis and Rosamund Pike. It's so
Ooh,
good, very creepy, and it's also got like a eerie vibe to it. But really recommend it for
interesting.
an AI movie.
Okay. Yeah, this is one that you had spoken to me about after we watched AI, and I haven't seen this movie. But I'm a big Bruce Willis fan, and I love Rosamund Pike. One of my favorite movies is Gone Girl. Yes, wave the red flags. I don't care.
Well, honestly, I don't know if I
And
would say Gone Girl is a red flag. I think that's a green flag for me, honestly. Anyone who likes that movie.
hell yeah, babe, hell yeah. That's why I fucked with you. It's a red flag for straight men, I
Oh
fear,
yeah.
which is good.
Yeah.
Stay away. Um,
I hope I'm not leading anyone in the wrong direction with surrogates, but from what I can remember, it was a good movie.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. And then another one that we watched in our night school bar class was Spike Jonze's Her, which is the opposite of this movie, where, well, I wouldn't say opposite, but it's about a man who falls in love with his
Hmm.
AI assistant. Um, and as much as she can, she does reciprocate those feelings. It's a really fucked up romance between man and machine.
I was gonna
um,
say it really reminds me of the article that you brought up earlier.
oh yes, about the people who are the Wired article.
Mhm.
Yes, about people who are falling in love with their
Yeah.
chatbots. Holy shit, I didn't even do that intentionally, but yes,
Hmm.
that's basically the plot of
Truly.
Her. And funny, Her takes place in 2025. Yeah, we are living the Her timeline now officially in more ways than one, I fear. And speaking of Robin Williams, I was going to throw out one more, Bicentennial Man, which I have not seen in a really, really long time. But from what I remember, he plays a robot who has like human emotions and goes on some sort of adventure. I'm really fuzzy on the details of Bicentennial Man, but I know it's Robin Williams and he plays a robot. And it's like late around this time period, actually, I believe that this came
I
out.
don't think I've seen that.
Um, um, I have, but it was a really long time ago. I'm definitely very rusty on the details of it. So yeah, maybe we should dive into Bicentennial
What's
Man at some
what's
point.
that movie with Pauly Shore and Brendan Fraser? Because when you first
Babe,
said
you're talking about,
ah,
are you talking about Encino
yes,
Man?
as soon as you said that, that's what I thought you meant. I was like, wait, what's that called?
We love Brendan Fraser, who had a big scene in the last movie we covered, Killers of the Flower Moon, and we forgot to talk about
Oh
it.
my
I thought about that
god.
afterwards. I was like, damn, we never even brought up
There
Brendan
were
Fraser, our
so many
fave.
things where I was like, even when I was listening to the podcast again, I was like, dang it, I could have brought this up.
That movie is, there's a lot to there's a lot to that movie, but when I listened back to it after the episode was already published, I was like, oh, we need to bring up Brendan Fraser. Damn, our
We're
bad,
doing it
guys.
now.
We're doing it now. We love Brendan Fraser, and his scene in Killers of the Flower Moon is so fucking remarkable. He just comes in like a wrecking ball, like 2 hours into this shit. Woo! He's a very powerful actor, and I'm so happy he's back in the
Me
limelight.
too.
Yeah, we should do some Brendan Fraser stuff at some point this year. Yeah, we'll put him on the long list. So, what are we doing for our next episode? Speaking of Rosamund Pike,
Our next episode is Pride and Prejudice,
which version? This is important.
the '05 Pride and
Period.
Prejudice.
The Keira Knightley,
Knightley.
the Keira Knightley,
Yes.
Joe Wright, Pride and Prejudice, which was a first watch for you, correct?
I think it all the way through. I've tried watching it a few times, but this was the first one where I did the whole thing.
Nice. And we have a very special guest for that episode. One of my podcast colleagues, one of my friends that I've made through other podcast fan groups, which is a lot less dorky than it sounds, I promise. Anna Stone of Stone's Top Tens, another film podcast woman hosted, I must say. She will be on that episode with us to discuss '05 Pride and Prejudice because she requested this movie specially. She was like, this is my comfort movie. This is my blanket cozy up. I've seen this 100 times movie. So I'm so excited to talk to her. She's going to be our first guest. I've been on her podcast a few times. If you want to check out a couple episodes I've been on of Stone's Top Tens. I am on the Big Daddy episode, and for the Christmas episode, I did Elf, and I will be appearing on that pod next season to discuss a couple of musicals.
Oh,
So that's just a little preview. Yeah, I'm going to be on there doing a few musicals. I can't say which ones, but if you follow me on Letterboxd, you'll be able to figure it out. So we're very excited to have her on next week. So until next episode, thank you for listening. I have been Marquita.
I have been Lindsay.
You always laugh when I throw to you. You're like, oh, I have to say my name.
Well, it's always because you say, I have been Marquita. And then I say, well, I have also been Lindsay. Because you never started off by saying, I have been Marquita. Like, I'm Marquita. So obviously I have to say, well, I've also been Lindsay.
Maybe this is something that I should stop doing then. Am I the problem?
No, never.
Thank you. Give us a follow on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Letterboxd. Our handle is Post Film Clarity Pod on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. And on Letterboxd, we are Post Film Clarity, all one word. Reach out to us via email if you'd like at postfilmclaritypod@gmail.com. And a special shout out to JJ from the Ringerverse group who found the podcast just out in the wild somehow and was our first official fan email.
That was so exciting.
So thank you. That was so exciting. Thank you, JJ. I had no idea that you were listening. But I'm happy you found us. And we've got a couple of thriller episodes that we're going to do as was discussed in our emails. So hi, JJ. Thank you for listening. Everyone else, step it up.
We need more emails.
Do better. We need more correspondence. And until next episode, thank you for listening. Bye, honeys.